Welcome to this third video in the tutorial series. As you can see here, we've got our little demo island that we've built before, but this time I've just brushed up the surface a little bit, painted it in, added a few textures to make it a little bit more visually appealing, and I've created this flat area that we'll use later on. But today I'm going to discuss paths and grass. Now apologies if you can't see the mouse cursor, but I use NVIDIA Shadow Play to record the screen, and at the moment it's not recording mouse cursor, so hopefully you can see it. But this is the path icon that I've highlighted here, so I'm just going to click into this one just now. Now this kind of works like when you're painting a landscape and you've got 4 viable textures that you can use. Now the difference here is the base one is always your grass texture, so when we come to build grass, wherever you place grass it will automatically overlay that with this texture here. So the first thing I'm going to do is pick a grassy style texture to put underneath it. Now in this circumstance I'm going to pick this dark coloured one here. And I'm going to come back out of the path menu at the moment. Now I'm going to now nip into grass mode. Now this is where we actually physically paint foliage within the builder. So the interface here is quite simple. You can have up to 3 layers of grass per chunk of the world, and they're all independent, so you can assign an image to it and then you can set a few criteria for it here. So what I'm going to do is just click here to bring up my image selection tool. Now what I'm going to first of all do is pick one with multiple frames. So in this instance I'm going to pick one that gives me a nice kind of wild looking impression, but I know has got 8 frames in it. So first thing I'm going to then do is tell it that that comprises 8 frames, and I'm going to change its height to be roughly 100 because I want to create a little bit of wild look to this. Now the density setting, it goes from 1 to 9. Now the lower that setting, the more dense the grass is, but we don't want this one to be too dense, so I'm going to set that to about 3 just now. Scatter again is a number going from 1 upwards, and the higher the number the more scattered out they'll be. So if you set that really low, so if you set it about 10, you'll get furrowed kind of look like you would get in a crop of fields, or if you remember the pink flowers from the World Builder demos that I've shown before, that's how that's done. So we'll maybe look at that another time. But for this time I'm going to leave the scatter at the default, and I'm going to turn off the cross-cutting image. So the cross-cutting image creates an additional grass plane at an angle so that when you're looking at it from above it doesn't look completely transparent. Now it works again similarly to the landscape painting in that you've got the same brushes here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pick my favourite brush, and in my world I'm just going to start randomly placing some painted areas. Now what I'm going to do is cut it out again from the areas on top of the outcrops, because I don't really want it to paint there. Although the grass is set that it will only go up to, I think it's about a 35-degree angle, which means that it won't actually draw grass or render grass on steep hills. So once I've done that and I've set out the area I'm going to do, I'm just going to hit the generate grass button. Now what that will do is it will go away and it will seed this, so it actually does it in 4 stages. It takes a little bit of time. Obviously the denser, more thick grass that you generate, the longer that's going to take. This one's not too bad, so hopefully it's going to be quite quick. Now this one I did set the height quite low, so I might need to just increase the height a little bit. And there we go, that's it, now generated that grass. Now that is far too small for me, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to change this height up a little bit more. And I'm going to make it a little bit, in fact I'm going to make it very dense. I'm just going to go with the maximum density setting, and I'm going to hit to regenerate. So it will automatically erase the grass that we did before, and it will start reseeding the new grass that we just planted there. Now you can see that this process is a little bit slower this time around because I've made it more dense. So it is quite literally building more planes of grass. So it's going to take a little bit longer. You can see it does it in 4 chunks, but where it comes to a section it doesn't have any grass, it will just skip straight past it. That's why we jumped from 25 to 50% so quickly there. Hopefully it's going to do something similar when it gets to 75%. No, it's going a little bit slow again because it's overlapping into the next quadrant of the grass tile. And just about there. Okay, so that's it now, generated our grass and foliage area there. Now, what I'm going to do is, in this particular instance, I'm just going to come straight back out of the editor, and you'll see it immediately comes up with this thing, building grass mask. Now, if you look underneath where we painted the grass, it's then overlaid that texture. So we can start to see where that grass is.
Now that one there is a little bit dark, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try changing the texture to something a bit different. So I'm going to try another one that I know has got multiple frames. It's a little bit better. I'm still not hugely keen on that one, so maybe we're just going to go with this one here. Now, this one actually only has 4 frames, whereas the previous one had 8, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change it back to say there's only 4 frames in that, and because it's a different type of grass, I'm going to lower that a little bit more. And this time, what I'm going to do is increase the scatter, because I want it to be genuinely random, and I only want it to generate a density of 3, so I'm going to do that, and then click to reseed the grass. Now you can reseed the grass as many times as you want, and just like painting a landscape, you can erase the parts you've done. So if you erase the entirety of the painted area and then hit generate grass, it just erases it completely to remove it. Now, grass is quite performance heavy and very impactful on the file size when you're saving. So I think if you cover an entire grass block with 3 layers of grass, it comes in roughly in the region of 60 megabytes, so it's quite large, so it's probably not a good idea to paste thick dense foliage everywhere within your worlds. But obviously you would aim that at particular platforms. On a mobile platform you'd want it to be a little bit less. So what I'm just going to do is come over here, and I'm just going to paint a little bit more grass. Now what I'm going to do is swap to grass layer 2 that I've not set yet, so I'm going to go back into there and I'm going to pick another texture. Now in this instance I'm going to pick, which one will I pick? I shall pick this one here. And I'm going to set that one's height a little bit lower, so I'm going to go 200 in this one. And this time I'm going to scatter a little bit less, and I'm going to activate the cross-cutting image. I'm going to use a different brush this time round. This time what I'm going to do is just going to paint in some random areas across this landscape just now. This is really just for demonstration purposes, so I'm not really worried too much about it. And once I've done that, I'm just going to hit seed the grass again. Now again, this takes, the length of time this takes will depend entirely on how much grass you've actually put within that chunk of your world, how dense it is, and quite literally, as I say, how much it has to physically build in the 3D space. And obviously activating the cross-cutting image adds a little bit to it as well, but the grass does store as mem blocks, so it loads quite quickly, so if you're on a PC based system or a Mac based system, it's actually not a huge amount of time that it takes to load it back in again. The generating of this would never actually be done in a game, once it's fixed it's simply saved off as a memory block object. So that's us just about there, and that's us finished. So again, I'm going to drop out of grass mode, and it's going to rebuild the grass mask, and this time it's going to underlay that all over the grass that I've just painted. So here we see nice thick dense grass mixed with a slightly more random cartoony style appearance there. Now, I mentioned in previous videos that there's a hierarchy to how all the layers are generated, and the top of that hierarchy is always paths. So what I'm going to do is go back into path mode here. Now on the second texture, which is actually your base path, I'm just going to click to load it up again, and this time I'm going to pick something that looks reminiscent to what a path might look like. So I'm going to pick this one, which is actually tree bark, but I find actually works quite well as a path. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a random brush. This one works quite well for it, and I'm actually just going to paint that across the landscape. Now you can see here it's painting underneath the grass, which is obviously not necessarily desirably what we want to do, but it is painting itself on top of all the textures in the landscape underneath it. Now underneath this grass it will also have painted on top of the grass, so I'm just going to nip back out of path mode and go back into grass mode. Now I've done this in this particular order just to demonstrate this, because the way that you should ideally build your world is build your landscape, paint your paths, and then finally add your grass. But if you change your mind and do it the other way around, all I have to do is go back into this and regenerate my grass. It'll erase everything that's gone before, and this time when it generates it, it will not plant the grass on a path. Now that applies to all 3 path layers, so it doesn't matter if you're combining 3 different types of texture, and if you get some mud textures and blend them together, I find it's quite nice to get a thick, nice, deep one for your main path, then maybe a slightly stony one, or a slightly less, or a slightly more overgrown one, and it just
fade them in together and feed them off, and you can obviously combine the different brushes and the pressure sensitive erasing to blend quite smoothly on this. So I'm just going to wait till it draws in. Now you can already see at this top part that's generated, it's not generated on the path. Now there's a little bit overlaps there because I've still got a scatter value, so essentially when it's seeding grass it goes through the landscape chunk in a point by point grid and then applies a random value to each point based on that scatter. So each tuft of grass, if you like, is randomly displaced by an amount within the scatter value. So the higher that scatter value, the more completely randomly your grass is going to be placed. One of the things I am going to add, it's a small thing, but I'm going to add an ability to not automatically generate the grass texture underneath it. But there we go, so now we've finished, and you can see the path has cut a swath straight through the grass. Now, in this particular instance, I'm looking at it, and actually I don't like that path texture, so I'm just going to quickly change that to something a bit different. Now for the purpose of this demo, I think I want it to be quite visible, so maybe we'll just try this one, which is quite nice. Yeah, I think that'll do, so I'm just going to drop out of there, and that is the basics of how we automatically generate grass and foliage and draw paths within the World Builder. Next time we're going to look at how we place objects